I think it is a disgrace and a scandal that we have not had a legislation which has adjusted the income tax system so that inflation does not automatically raise rates. Congress has been very quick to index its own salaries. Congress has been very quick to index the salaries of government employees, but it has been very reluctant to apply the same principle to the taxes that it imposes on the citizen. I must say myself, I would go the other way. I would like to see the taxes indexed, and with respect to the salaries of Congress and of government officials, I would index them perversely. Every 5% inflation is a 5% reduction in their salary. And I assure you, if you did that, you'd cure inflation real fast. One more general point. What if we don't cure inflation? We have no good choices. If we don't cure inflation, if we continue at high rates of inflation, we'll also have high unemployment. One of the main reasons is because of the false cures that will be attempted. In every country that has had great inflation, the governments have resorted sooner or later to wage and price controls, supposedly as an attempt to cure inflation. We did that in this country in 1971 with disastrous results. Wage and price controls are not a cure for inflation. In fact, wage and price controls, you will find, are imposed by governments that want to inflate but want to conceal it from the populace. Governments want to get a short-term benefit by pumping up the economy, but they want the populace to think they're doing something about inflation. So they announce with great fanfare that they're fixing prices and wages. But the result is only to hold down, to conceal the inflation for a year or two and then have it blow up, which is, of course, exactly what happened after 1971. In light of this background, I come to the final point I want to make. I think it's very instructive to look at recent U.S. history. Our inflation really started in the post-war period in the 1950s. In the 1950s, we first had a very substantial inflation during the Korean War, and then after that was over, we had a creeping inflation. It was an accident that 1950s inflation didn't continue and grow from that point on. But we had a political accident. We had a non-political president who was willing to risk the election of his vice president in order to stop the inflation. Mr. Eisenhower was willing to take the unpopular measures that stopped inflation, that put us back on a non-inflationary source, by approving measures that led to a series of recessions in 1958 and then in 1960, by holding down government spending, holding down government money creation, so that from an inflation rate, which at that time was regarded as terrible, of 3.5%, it was brought back to essentially zero. Our real inflation started in the early 1960s, when John F. Kennedy inherited this windfall of a non-inflationary environment as a result of President Eisenhower's policies. And from 1960 on, we have been on a roller coaster. We have been going up in inflation, we have been coming down. We've been going up, and we've been coming down. Every time we go up, there's a great outcry, we have to do something about stopping inflation. And so we tend to step on the brakes. That tends to produce a downturn. But the moment unemployment starts going up, there's an even bigger outcry. We have to do something about the unemployment. So we reverse and step on the accelerator instead of the brake, and we're off again. But this roller coaster is around an upward level. It's not been on the level. Each peak has been higher than the preceding peak. Each trough has been higher than the preceding trough. I am afraid that we shall have to go through several more of these swings in the roller coaster before the American people decide that they have had enough of it, and that it's time to bring it to an end, that it's time to send an unmistakable message to Washington: we want you to stop the roller coaster. When we do, there is no technical difficulty about stopping it. Let me emphasize, it will not be costless to stop it, but it will not be costless to continue what we're doing. If you're sick, it's very, very seldom that a doctor can give you a cure which will enable you to rise from your bed the next day, a whole person, completely unaffected by your illness. We have a disease called inflation. Fortunately, our basic constitution is strong. This is a strong, healthy country, although we've been doing our best to make it unhealthy. We've been doing our best to take measures that will reduce our productivity. But nonetheless, we're still a pretty strong, healthy country. And there's nothing basically wrong with us. But we have been suffering from a self-imposed disease of inflation. Sooner or later, I am sure we will get up the will to cure it. But we shall not cure it or continue it without paying a price either way.